With the hunchback and Sonny Riccobini locked up, their brother Robert, a fucking memory. I've been doing some thinking. After I got shot, all that time in the hospital, Maria has been great. She's been my right arm. And my fucking left. Honest to God, had it not been for her, I doubt my recovery would have been as smooth as it has been. Oh yeah? Her mother could never get her to clean her fucking room. Now she's nursing you back to life. Like she's motherfucking Teresa. She's not exactly the best cook. Her minestrone soup ain't all that fucking bad. Even if it's a bit bland and watery for my taste. I mean, it didn't exactly kill me. She's real good at boiling water. Like I said, I've done a lot of thinking. My mother's been on my mind lately. God rest her soul. My father, God rest his. Outside of the family, my sister and my niece are all I have left. I'd like your permission to take her out. Maria. On December 10th, 1982, 4 days after the murder of Robert Riccobini, police reported that Salvatore Testa and members of his young executioner's crew were ambushed as they were driving in a car near 11th and Catherine Streets in South Philadelphia. According to police accounts, a car pulled out in front of the late model Oldsmobile in which Testa was riding. Their car became boxed in by another car that was loaded with 4 Riccobini soldiers who jumped out of their car and opened fire. Gino Milano was driving the Oldsmobile, jammed it into reverse and pressed down hard on the gas pedal. Milano tried to maneuver out of the narrow street, but struck a utility pole. Salvie and his men returned fire, and for several minutes, the intersection became a combat zone. By the time the police arrived, the Riccobini men had driven off. Luckily for Salvie, Joey Punch, Gino and his brother, Nicholas the Whip Milano, no one was hit in the hail of bullets, and it proved to be one of the last assaults in the carnage-filled conflict that had rocked the underworld in South Philadelphia. Salvie and his crew were rounded up later by the police and questioned about the shooting. Random hitters. We didn't see nothing. Bullets flying all over the intersection, on a not-so-crowded street, in broad daylight. And you didn't see nothing? I was tying my high tops. Lace had gotten loose. How about you, Mr. Testa? Eyewitness accounts indicates there were at least 4 gunmen who shot at you and your friends like it was the wild, wild fucking West. Can you identify any of them? It was high noon, cop. The sun was out. What does that mean? I was blinded by the sun's rays. I couldn't see nothing. Or anybody. Wise guy, huh? We free to go? Yeah. You're free to go. Want some advice? Not really, cop. Crawl back into your clubhouse. And stay out of the fucking sun. The aborted attempt on Salvie's life was a desperate last-ditch effort by the beleaguered Rickabinis to turn the tide. With that failure, the hostilities came to an end. A short time later, Chucky Merlino sent word around to Kamak and Moore. The war was over. There would be, however, one more casualty in the Riccabini War. On December 14th, Enrico Riccabini, the 27-year-old son of Mario Sonny Riccabini, took a .38 caliber pistol, walked into the safe in the back of his jewelry store on Sansom Street, held the gun to his left temple, and pulled the trigger. Riccabini was a quiet, polite, well-mannered boy who had no apparent connection with the underworld in which his father and uncles traveled. The killings, however, had taken a toll. After the murder of his Uncle Robert, Enrico stayed away from his jewelry store for several days. When he finally did show up, he had a bevy of bodyguards around him. On the day of his death, someone came into the store and said that SALVIE TESTA, Phil Leonetti, and Lawrence Merlino had been outside looking for him. Enrico Riccabini was literally frightened to death. A few days after Harry's guys tried to kill Salvie and Joe Punch, I drove up to Philly with Lawrence to go see a jeweler I did business with on Jewelers Row. It was a few weeks before Christmas, and I was going to pick up a watch for Maria. When we get to Philly, me and Lawrence meet Salvie at Virgilio's, and we go see the jeweler. I think we may have had Fafi with us. As we're leaving, we pass by a jewelry shop that's owned by Sonny Riccabini's kid, Enrico. So, Salvie says, "Yo, Philip, you know we gotta go in there. We need to see what's on this motherfucker's brain." Meaning, let's go see what this fuck is thinking. So, I knock on the window and I see this Enrico kid coming towards the door. Then he freezes when he sees who it is. So, I say to him, "Come on, we just want to talk." And I see him retreat to the back of the store. With these jewelry shops, you had to be buzzed in. You couldn't just walk into the store. A few seconds later, some fuck who works there comes to the window and says, "Listen, if you don't leave, we're calling the cops." So, we leave. Moments later, Enrico Riccobini walks into his office at the rear of the store, puts a pistol to the side of his head, and pulls the trigger. He was so frightened by the sight of Philip Leonetti and SALVIE TESTA that he killed himself. He was 27 years old. The death of Enrico Riccobini further enhanced the street reputation of Salvatore Testa. When Salvi heard the details, he said to Nick the Crow Caramondi, "Look at this shit. Now we can hit guys without fucking bullets. All we gotta do is call them up and tell them we want to talk to them and use their own fucking guns. That's how afraid they are of us." Oh fucking shit, motherfucker. Oh man, that's some shit. That's some shit. He was a good kid. He just got scared. He thought they were after him. He never did nothing. The kid. Nobody wanted to hurt him. When news of his nephew's suicide reached him in prison, Harry the Hunchback's heart and his will were shattered. Things had gone too far. Both his brother and now his young nephew were dead. He was ready to give in, wave the white flag. During the first week of 1984, the Hunchback sent word to what remained of his crew. The battle was over. Nicodemo Little Nicky Scarfo had won the war. The victory entitled Scarfo to everything that belonged to the Riccobinis, a treasure trove of illegal operations that he and his men would devour and add to their already overflowing stable of cash cow rackets. With news of the Enrico Riccobini suicide and the Hunchback's surrender, the Scarfo crew found themselves thrust into a new stratosphere within the underworld. From Philly to Atlantic City, AC to New York, news of Salvie Testa and his crew of young executioners propelled them into near rockstar status. Mob guys from all over were making their way over to the clubhouse at Kamak and More, reveling in the young executioner's success with immense admiration towards its leader. Salvi and Chucky Merlino supervised the takeover of virtually all of Harry Riccobini's businesses. The vending machine trade went to Joseph Punchatore. Most of Riccobini's associates and their loan sharking and bookmaking operations were assigned to the boys at Kamak and More. Salvi assigned most of these guys to me and Charlie, and by the end of '83, everything was cool. He and Charlie White were now both proposed members. That December, Tommy Del Giorno hosted a Christmas party at his house, a combination holiday and victory party. And for the new year, Caramondi, Ianich, Del Giorno, and Inarella headed for Atlantic City. After 18 tense and deadly months of virtually living on 24-hour alert, it was time for some rest and relaxation. A chance to slow down, pause, and reflect on where he stood in the organization. What's more, Caramondi had developed a good relationship with SALVIE TESTA, clearly the dominant force in the Philadelphia family. With more than 70 commendations for bravery, heroism, and valor, 40-year-old Michael Chitwood is the most decorated police officer in this city's history. Still, he says he fears one man, a 28-year-old former real estate salesman with a clean police record. The man's name is Salvatore Testa, and according to Mr. Chitwood, who left the Philadelphia Police Department in 1983 to become the chief of police in nearby Middletown Township, he gives you that look, like he might rip your jugular veins out. More to the point, according to the 1983 report of the Pennsylvania Crime Commission, Salvatore Testa is a member of the Mafia. Indeed, Crime Commission members now say that Mr. Testa is the fastest rising star in Philadelphia's organized crime family. At an age when many people are just starting to climb a career ladder, Mr. Testa is said by law enforcement agencies to be on the brink of controlling this city's mafia, a job usually held by men twice his age. It's no small job. According to the Crime Commission, the Philadelphia Mafia's drug dealing, loan sharking, racketeering, and gambling operations bring in several $100 million each year. Much of that activity is centered in the coveted Atlantic City market, which the Philadelphia mob shares with the New York Mafia. Crime Commission investigations show the Philadelphia mob, mostly through straw owners, controls a significant number of legitimate businesses, including about 100 local restaurants and dozens of bars. It also operates jewelry shops, trucking outfits, vending operations, game arcades, construction and cement companies, janitorial concerns, beer distributorships, and other businesses with heavy cash flows that allow behind-the-scenes owners to siphon off an estimated several $100 million annually. In size, the Philadelphia mob competes with the largest corporations in the area. The tax loss to government is horrendous, says the Commission's executive director, Wallace P. Hay. He estimates that between 5% and 10% of an average Philadelphian's weekly expenditures are ultimately channeled back to the mob. Partly because of his youth, partly because of his exploits, and largely because of his uncanny ability to survive gunshots, Salvatore Testa is certainly the mob's most celebrated figure these days. A handsome, stocky 6-footer, he has appeared numerous times on the front pages of local papers. In 1980, in an incident police say was not mob-related, Mr. Testa was shot in the groin and leg after an argument outside of a South Philadelphia restaurant. He made his front-page debut in August of 1982, after he was shot 8 times at close range at an outdoor market in South Philadelphia and left for dead. He survived, but 2 gunmen were caught and convicted. He dodged another assassination attempt just a few months ago. Mr. Testa's father, Philip Chicken Man, headed the mob for nearly 1 year before being blown up in 1981 by a nail bomb planted on his front porch. The junior Mr. Testa would not be interviewed for this article, but his attorney, Robert Simone, strongly denies that Salvatore Testa is a mobster, emphasizing his clean police record. I don't think there's any evidence that he's done anything wrong. The evidence is that his last name is Testa. Guilt by association is what it's boiled down to. Mr. Simone speculates that the gunman who shot Mr. Testa may have been aiming for someone else. Still, the Crime Commission and the Federal Bureau of Investigation have identified Salvatore Testa as a capo, or capo regime, to Nicodemo Scarfo, reputedly boss of the Philadelphia Mafia, and to local lawmen. Chicken Man's son symbolizes a new, swaggering breed of mobster that has become dominant in recent years. As capo regime and leader of the young executioners, Salvie was not only a savage in the streets, he was also a good earner. He inherited most of his father's wealth, including his lucrative loan sharking and extortion rackets, and about 4 Philadelphia properties, valued at about $800,000, one of which was a rundown bar in Dugtown, Atlantic City, bought through a third party by developer Donald Trump in '84. Trump paid Testa $1.1 million for the right to tear down the bar and build Trump Plaza Hotel. He inherited the family home at 2117 West Porter Street, as well as his father's restaurant, Virgilio's, at 5 Bank Street in the Old City District. He had a house at the shore near Atlantic City and kept a boat in a nearby marina. The night his father, Philip Testa, was killed, the police found $15,000 in cash on his body and another $90,000 in his home. Salvie also developed a lucrative financial arrangement with several local drug dealers, including the Black Mafia, that supplied parts of North and West Philadelphia. His legitimate and illegitimate businesses had made him a millionaire. The Philadelphia branch of La Cosa Nostra, like most of the New York families, paid lip service to the ban on made members dealing in narcotics. But Testa, like most of his cohorts, found a way around this prohibition. Caramondi explains the somewhat distorted logic. You couldn't deal drugs, but you could shake down drug dealers, or you could loan them money. You could do anything you wanted with them. Steal from them, fucking rob them, make them pay a street tax. They tried to say that Salvie was dealing drugs, which he wasn't. But he was financing some dealers, and he was making a lot of fucking money with those guys. As a mobster with Rockstar-like status, Salvie lived the life. He was almost never seen in public without several husky friends who surrounded him when he frequented the city's nightclubs. In a widely publicized incident, a local real estate developer was punched, kicked, and stabbed in the throat, reportedly after a nightclub argument with Mr. Testa. According to press and police accounts, a Pennsylvania grand jury looked into the incident, but did not press charges after the victim suddenly decided not to cooperate. We would love to convict him of doing something, says Captain Frank Wallace, until recently the head of the Philadelphia Police Department's Organized Crime Unit. Needless to say, he is the apple of our law enforcement's eye. We'll get him. Following the shooting incident in the Italian market, Salvie would start dating Maria Merlino, daughter of family underboss Salvatore Chucky Merlino. Maria had nursed the wounded Testa back to good health. It was during this time they would become inseparable. Once his health had been restored, Salvie arranged an intimate dinner where he proposed marriage. He and Maria Merlino were now engaged. Salvie decided to wait for family boss Nicky Scarfo to be released from prison before they married. One day, my uncle calls the office from jail, and I tell him that Salvie had gotten engaged to Chucky's daughter. When I said it, there was dead silence on the other end of the phone. I knew that he wasn't happy about it. I knew that his paranoia would start, and he would go through every possible scenario of what could happen if Salvie married Chucky's daughter. Would they form an alliance and try to overthrow him? Would they try to kill him? Could he ever fully trust that they weren't plotting against him? These are all of the thoughts that went through his head in the 15 seconds of silence on the phone. This is how sick his mind worked. But all was not well in the ranks of the tumultuous Scarfo mob. Despite the fact that it had won the Riccabini War, those in Scarfo's inner circle did not know it yet, but the plot would soon thicken and was about to get even more treacherous than it already was. By January '84, Nicky Scarfo had been the boss of the Philadelphia Atlantic City mob for approximately 34 months and spent 17 of those months, or half of his tenure to that point, behind bars at a federal prison in El Paso, Texas. The crime family he left was not necessarily the crime family he was returning to at the end of his prison sentence. Simply put, the Scarfo mob was in tatters, with many of Scarfo's top guys facing legal problems of their own. Some of the charges stemming from incidents that occurred while Scarfo's men were drunk. Summer of '83, his underboss, Chucky Merlino, had been picked up on a drunken driving charge in Margate. Merlino, who often drank more than he could handle, tried to bribe the police officer who brought him in for a breathalyzer test. He offered $400 in cash and his gold watch. Merlino made this offer while he was in the police station. The cops got it all on videotape. No one ever mistook the Merlino brothers for brain surgeons, but this was stupidity of the highest order. Chucky was in real trouble. Drunken driving was one thing. He might lose his license. Attempted bribery was another. Merlino was booked on attempted bribery and DWI charges and faced as many as 10 years in state prison. There didn't seem to be any way to get him out of the box, and although that prison sentence was still somewhere down the road, by the end of '83, it was clear that Salvatore Testa was the heir apparent, if not of Scarfo, then certainly of Merlino. Salvie's position was solidified even more by the fact that he was engaged to Merlino's daughter. If Chucky went away, it would only be natural for Salvie to look after the affairs of his soon-to-be father-in-law. Merlino's brother Lawrence had been arrested and charged with disorderly conduct after he got drunk at a wedding and then made terroristic threats to a Philadelphia police officer. Like his brother Chucky, Lawrence was also facing state prison time. Despite promising to clean up his act, Nicholas Nick the Blade Virgilio was back in trouble after a drunken incident at an Atlantic City casino, where during a fight he threatened to kill a man. As a result, the twice convicted murderer was sent to state prison for 3 years. Scarfo's own son, Nicky Jr., was facing an underage drinking rap following an arrest in Atlantic City. Scarfo capo Joseph Chicky Ciangelini had lost his appeal on federal racketeering charges and was hauled off to federal prison, as was his co-defendant, Mario Sonny Riccobini, who headed what was left of the Riccobini faction. Both Raymond Long John Martorano and his son, Cowboy, were facing federal drug charges, and rumors were abound that Long John would soon face charges for his role in the murder of union boss John McCullough, after it was reported that the triggerman, Willard Jr. Moran, was cooperating with the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office. Saul Kane was also under investigation on federal drug charges. Frank Gerace was facing charges that he had embezzled union funds when he was the head of Local 54 and allegedly funneled those funds to Leonetti and Scarfo. Even Scarfo's attorney, Bobby Simone, was facing a federal prison sentence after getting indicted for income tax evasion. But the worst news Scarfo was to hear dealt with his own nephew, Philip Leonetti, who had been indicted on extortion charges stemming from his involvement in a corrupt land deal with the mayor of Atlantic City. It seemed that the only high-ranking member of the Scarfo mob that didn't have legal problems was Scarfo's street boss, SALVIE TESTA. Nicky Scarfo drew on his contractor friends to rebuild the Testa home, vacant since the explosion that killed Salvie's father, Philip, as a wedding gift for the newlyweds. Wedding gowns and tuxes had been ordered, floral arrangements assembled, and the church reserved. Invitations sent to over 700 guests. The wedding reception was to be held at the Bellevue Stratford Hotel in Center City. The bride's father had gifted her tons of jewelry, and she was renovating the house at 2117 Porter Street. I really had a good relationship with Salvie. I'm still doing the shakes, doing what I'm doing, what I gotta do. And Salvie's very pleased. So, one night, he invites me and this lady friend I was dating out to dinner with him and his girl, Maria. He took us to this real nice restaurant. But then he gets in a beef with Maria. She's telling him, "My father bought me all this jewelry." Shit like that. Now, Salvie is a down-to-earth motherfucker. He still lived on 2117 Porter Street, where his father had lived. And while they're waiting to get hitched, Maria's having the fucking house redone, with French toilets and fucking jacuzzis. What the fuck? Now, you can say the whole setup was sorta old-fashioned, but that's the way Salvie wanted to live. He wanted to live in his father's footsteps, in life and in death. He didn't like all that fancy stuff, so they got into an argument. My father did this and my father did that. Well, you could see this guy was fucking fed up with her. I could tell then. There was no love there. He was just marrying her because she was the underboss's daughter. Little did I know, Salvie had it in his mind to break off the wedding. Ain't that a motherfucker? This was his first visit to Latuna since his boss and godfather, Nicky Scarfo, had been incarcerated. And with Scarfo set to be released in the coming weeks, he needed to speak with him before he returned to the chaos in both Atlantic City and Philadelphia. Clear the air that had been slowly choking him these past few months. Salvie is escorted into the visitor's room, where Nicky Scarfo sits behind the glass partition. A thought comes to mind. The boss looks tired, thinner than his usual slender frame. He picks up the phone and, for a moment, is met with silence. Scarfo gazes at him, waiting for Salvie to speak. How are you? A notch below an extended stay at the fucking Waldorf. If you discount the rats and the roaches, you ought to shut this fucking place down. A few of the guys are with me, but I wanted to talk to you alone first. How is the rebuild coming? What you did was more than generous, Nick. I'm your godfather. Besides, I promised your father I would. I'm sorry he's not here. To see you become your own. I want to call it off, Nick. It was a mistake. If I didn't know it then, I know it now. How is it a mistake? Oil and vinegar. I don't want to hurt her. Or her father. Or her uncle. Does he know? Salvie shakes his head. Does she know? I haven't said anything to anybody. Except you and Philip. Looks like you jumped the gun with those plans of yours. The proposal, I mean. It was during a difficult time. After I got the incident, she was there for me. I thought I was doing the right thing. It felt right. At the time. I don't want to hurt her, Nick. Or upset things. I don't want to disrespect anybody. The family. Is there someone else? Doesn't matter. Is there someone else? Maybe. What the fuck does that mean? That's not the reason I want to call it off. I need to know you're okay with this, Nick. He was a ruggedly handsome, 6'1", 210-pound, Mafia prince, a charismatic leader, and, without question, the field general for the Scarfo organization during the brief but bloody Rabini War. You're young. The girls can't seem to keep their fucking claws off you. Spread yourself the fuck around like butter before you tie yourself down. Let me deal with the fallout. Don't worry. When I come home, I'll make things right.